Greetings and welcome to the Halloween edition of the Sliders Review. And I'm here today to talk to you about Goosebumps, the Ghost Next Door. This is one of my all-time favorite episodes. It's a two-parter, but it's 40 minutes long, but it's an actual two-parter. And what I love about it is the misdirection, the twist, and how dark it is. It is dark on a kid's level, but boy, is it dark. I couldn't believe they was willing really to go there. It is insane. Like, you think all this one stuff is happening and you're getting a bunch of like red herrings, but then you find out the truth and it's kind of like, oh, that makes a lot more sense. It deals with a character named Danny and a character named Hannah. Now, what's interesting about Hannah is Hannah actually showed up in the Goosebumps movie that came out, but played by a different actress. And so, like, basically it deals with the beginning of Hannah. She's laying in bed, she sleeps at night, and there's smoke, and she screams there's a fire. Then she wakes up, and everything's completely normal. And so it's like, oh, okay, she had a nightmare and stuff. So basically, it's summer, and she's writing her friend on the computer and stuff. Like, she's writing her letter on the computer to print it out, but instead of writing it by hand, but she's still gonna mail it off by hand. That don't make no sense. But it was the 90s, so that's what you did. And she's writing her best friend, talking about how because of her allergies, she had to miss summer camp and how she really wanted to go, and like, telling her friend, hope you meet some cute boys and this and that. Well, she misses the mailman, Mr. Chesney, and everything. That really pisses her off. And so at some point in time when she's in her house, she sees a shadowy figure going to this empty house in her neighborhood. And it's like a literal shadow figure. But it looks like it's wearing a trench coat, but it's a shadow figure. And so she's creeped out and she's scared and she calls the police. But the police person can't hear her over the phone. And she's just begging, talking about it's like a person over there trying to break into the old empty house. But the police officer cannot hear, or the dispatcher cannot hear her. Then somebody throws a brick through her window and it scares the crap out of her. Well, the next day and everything, she's like playing piano and stuff like that. And so she's outside because, well, actually, no, tell you the truth. No, when they threw the window, I can't talk. When they threw the brick through the window, my mind is like somewhere else. When they threw the brick through the window and everything, she got scared and she ran out the house. Why would you run out the house for? You're probably more safer if you lock yourself in a room, but she's now outside with the person who she saw creeping around. So she's screaming and she's running, and it's nighttime, right? And so she meets a boy named Danny. He's dressed all in black. And, he's like, ooh, did I scare you and everything? And she's all like, where'd you come from? And she's all like, I saw somebody at this house. He's all like, can't be, and everything. And so he's like, that's my house now. She's like, that's not your house. That house is empty. And I would have known if somebody moved in there. He's all like, well, maybe we moved in when we caught you not looking or something like that. And so she's all like, there's like a person creeping around. He threw a rock through the window, and he wants to kind of like see and everything. And he wants to be like spooked and scared, but she won't show him. Anyway, like I said, next day she's playing piano and everything. And she's a little weirded out by Danny, but she thinks he's cute. And so basically she hangs out with Danny a lot, but he's very mysterious. He won't let her into his house, and we don't know why. And so she starts to suspect things about him. When like he meets these neighborhood boys riding a bike, they're like racing through the street and everything. And Danny almost get hit by Mr. Chesney, because he didn't see him and stuff. This now makes Hannah suspect that Danny might be a ghost, especially because he's constantly dressing all in black. So like one day, he takes her and so he wants to show her something. And he goes into like the attic of like his house. And not attic, but the basement of his house through the back. But he disappears, right? Because he's trying to play a game on her, trying to like scare her again. And so she's like, she's walking down in the basement, and she sees a shadowy figure calling her name, Hannah. And it's the same voice from that creepy figure from that night. So it's like, what the world is going on? So she gets scared, she runs out, and she literally thinks Danny is like a ghost. So at some point in time, she sees like the door to his house like open, and she goes in. And so when she's inside his house, she sees like, a bunch of candles everywhere. The lights aren't on. She sees his mother cooking, and she keeps like trying to talk to his mother, but the mother's not paying attention to her. And so she looks inside the stove, and it's cobwebs in the stove. It's disgusting, like nasty, right? Danny shows up. He's like, "What the world are you doing in my house?" She's all like, "Well, I was looking for you." She's all like, "Why won't your mom talk to me?" and stuff like that. And he tells her, like his mom is deaf, and he don't like telling people that because he's embarrassed. You should never be embarrassed if your family member is deaf. But he's a little kid and stuff like that. And she's all like, "But you're a ghost," and everything like that. He's like, "No, the power is just not on in my house, and like that's why we have candles and blah 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 and stuff." So she thought, oh, she's freaking out for no reason, right? So she leaves, and she almost runs into like the pizza delivery man. But then before she leaves, she shows Danny something she printed out from the internet. It's about a fire that happened in the neighborhood in their neighborhood and stuff. And that's why she thought like he was a ghost and the house was empty and stuff like that. Well, she leaves her printed out paper, and he goes to give it to her. And so he realizes something on the paper. He's all like, the address you told me about, that the house burnt down, that's your house and everything. She's all like, that can't be my house. I would know if my house burnt down. So then she looks at her house, and her house is now condemned. At first, it looked like a normal house. She's devastated. And so then she runs towards her house, but she runs through Danny. It turns out Hannah is the ghost. So in the beginning, when the smoke and she couldn't breathe, talking about fire, that was actually real, and she burnt to death and everything. How dark is that for a kids episode? A little girl burnt to death with her family and stuff. Because now this explains why her family never shows up. And so Danny is now freaked out that Hannah is a ghost and wants nothing to do with her. When she goes in her house, it's completely singed, dark, condemned, you name it. And she can't believe she's a ghost. And so, like, that shadow figure comes to her. It's an actual shadow. And he tells her plain and simple, you stay away from Danny and everything. Like, he does not concern you. And me and you should stick together because we're, like, similar and everything. And so she doesn't listen to him, and she goes to try to talk to Danny, but he doesn't want nothing to do with her. He even puts up like garlic and stuff, thinking like she's like a vampire and stuff. His mom is kind of like, "Boy, are you all right?" But in sign language, And so she's now pissed about this. And so now, since Danny don't want to be her friend, now she wants to be friends with the shadow. The shadow has nothing but bad intentions. He wants to teach her how to like haunt people and stuff. Her first prey is Mr. Chesney. So she plays around with all his mail and freaks him out and everything. But she realizes something now. Now that she knows for a fact that she is a ghost, it's harder for her to pick up things. See, before, she was just going through the motions thinking she was real, and it was easy for her to touch things. Now, she has to concentrate really, really, really hard and stuff. So anyways, Danny's new friends, who are a bunch of buttheads, one dresses in like a bowling shirt constantly, and they don't believe that there's a ghost. And he's all like, it's true. So he's gonna prove to them that Hannah is really a ghost. So now he's trying to use Hannah. And so when he's in Hannah's place and everything, he's looking for her. She's all like, I don't feel like talking now. You just want to use me for your friends. All of a sudden we see the shadow, and he tries to throw a board on Danny. But Hannah like pushes him out the way and tells him to get out. So she wants to know what's up with the shadow. Why did he try to kill Danny? And so it turns out he wants to take over Danny's body. Danny is scheduled to die. And when Danny dies, he will take over Danny's body, becoming a living boy again. That is some dark mess. And so he tells Hannah, you stay away and everything, you leave me alone. And so Hannah has to try to save Dada Danny. But she has to find him first. The little butthead boys want him to throw a stink bomb inside Mr. Chesney's house. So Hannah uses all her strength and she rides on a bike. It's some cool CGI. The bike is like riding by itself. Danny's inside. He lights the fire on the stink bomb, but he drops like, the match or whatever. And it sets the house on fire. He passes out because he can't breathe. Now the same thing is gonna happen to him that happened to Hannah. Mr. Chesney is like he smells the smoke and he runs out the house, but he doesn't see Danny because of all the smoke. Hannah goes inside and like she makes the shadow, like she vanquishes the shadow in a weird dumb kind of way. Because he can only get inside Danny's body at midnight, but it's past that time and he fades away. So she doesn't have the strength no more to pick him up because she used it all to ride the bike. But she has enough strength to play the piano. See, now that was foreshadowed in the early beginning, and now it plays out at the end of her playing piano. Mr. Chesney hears this and assumes somebody is in his house. And so he runs inside and he finally sees Danny. And he rescues Danny. When Danny comes to, he can't see Hannah no more for some bizarre reason. Why? Because she is now finally going to pass. See, she was just like a trapped soul on Earth, but she had a purpose. Her purpose was to save Danny. Now that she fulfilled that purpose, her dead family, her mother, father, and two little brothers, they now come in ghost form to take Hannah away to the afterlife. And so she says goodbye to Danny, and I guess Danny can hear it, and he tells Hannah like goodbye and tells his mom he's just saying goodbye to like a friend and everything. That is some creepy mess for a kid's show. Not only did the girl and her family die, but they came back in ghost form to take her to heaven. And this came from Goosebumps of all things, man. This is like an insane, awesome episode. This is why it's always one of my favorites and stuff. And what was so cool is that when they brought her for the Goosebumps movie, she assumed she was R.L. Stein's daughter, but it turns out she's actually dead and everything in the movie. That wasn't that spooky. Alright, well, I shall talk to y'all later. Bye.